Hi, my name is Johan Petroselli. Welcome to my site survey proposal for the class of Land Surveying 2. Today is the 18th of September 2025 and the address that we'll be looking at is 7 Lemonwood Lane, Crawford, Christchurch. Introduction and purpose. We are looking at Cashmere Estate, one of the newer developments in the area of Crawford, Christchurch, part of the larger development of Hallswell area and southern Christchurch. Um, this part specifically of Christchurch is right tucked up in the one of the valleys of the Port Hills and in a location where you have easy access to both Hallswell and southern Christchurch. In this part of the presentation, we will be looking at two main things. What is a topographic survey and what's the specific purpose for this site? A topographic survey is a type of land surveying that maps the natural and man-made features of a land, including its elevations, contours, trees, buildings, roads, and other surfaces to provide an accurate image of the site's terrain. That is essentially what we do as surveyors most of the time, to create images of what real, physical, natural, and man-made objects in nature. For this specific site, I believe they are planning to build a house on this site, as it is a new residential development in Christchurch. Survey area and context. Next, I will show you an aerial view of the valley of Croft. You will be able to see what the terrain looks like. As it is tucked up to the Port Hills, you can see the terrain is quite steep on the whole development area. It is a lot of earthworks to make this area an area that's able to be constructed on. And this image gives you a good idea of how steep it is. Our site specifically is quite steep and it has a lot of incline as you build on it. So it will be a challenge to survey and a challenge to build on, but it is quite an interesting challenge. It's a cool new area of Christchurch that has easy access to both Hallswell and southern Christchurch. And it is a nice residential area with lots of new houses. So it would be a very interesting place to live. As you can see, now I'll be showing you a little bit of what the Kashmir Estate looks like and our site. On the right, you can see a bigger image of the whole development. There's two main roads in the area. The road that refers to our site mostly is Arthur Smith Drive. On Arthur Smith Drive, you will go onto Kanuka Lane, and from Kanuka Lane, you'll have to turn to Lemonwood Lane to access our site. As I will show you later on, there's a lot of retaining walls and things that prevent movement, so you have to drive around over the top of the site to come down onto the house. So the house will have a driveway facing upwards towards the hill. Site photos and health and safety. As you can see on the left image, this is the driveway of Kanuka Lane that goes from Arthur Smith Drive. You can see that there's a lot of high, tall retaining walls, and our site is on the left side of the screen. It is quite interesting to see, as this is a more recent photo of the roads being built and all the retaining walls already in place. It is important that in this site health and safety is taken quite seriously, as there's a lot of construction still going on. Some of the lanes and driveways are still being built, and there's a lot of houses being built. So there's a lot of contractors, trucks, cement going up and down the road. So it is quite important that surveyors are safe while doing this work, especially because of all the construction active going on in so many different sites around it. As you can see in the image there specifically, there's a truck unloading material on top of the driveway, on top of the retaining wall of the driveway. So it is important that we wait for those guys to finish work before continuing on to survey in that specific regard. You can see on the right side the image of Lemonwood Lane from the top, and the kind of top of our site, you can see there's still diggers doing work and doing is still expanding the area. So there is a lot of work going on, and important to keep on to our health and safety and make sure that we are well aware of all the hazards as we go onto the site. Detail required. On these images, you can see a little more of what the site looks like, and you can see that it's quite hilly, quite steep, and on the left there you can even see that there's a big hole on the site. I believe this hole has been currently been smoothed out by people doing earthworks, but it was something to be aware of while surveying this area because it was a bit of a health and safety risk for the guys that would be coming there. So it is quite a steep site. Because of how steep it is also very important that we get the data requirements right. The amount of spatial points, the distances between points is done right. Otherwise, we cannot represent what the ground looks like properly. But it is something that it needs to be known before heading there, so it's good that we can see these images and have a good idea and plan well before heading out to site. Grid datum and control. We will be looking at the bigger picture of what surveying is like. So New Zealand actually uses the New Zealand Geodetic Datum 2000 for the whole country. That is a grid reference for horizontal coordinates used here in New Zealand. And they are divided into meridional circuits, which are essentially areas that pretend that the Earth is flat to create a easier canvas to work on as surveyors, and they're specific to each region. Christchurch specifically, we use the Mount Pleasant projection, and that is the one that we'll be using for this site. Vertically, we use the New Zealand Vertical Datum 2016, and that is the requirement for all Christchurch developments and as of 2025, I believe. So Christchurch City Council requires us to use these for the Christchurch and Selwyn area, I believe. On the picture on the right, you can see a site datum that was installed for the surveyors. So that will make it easier for the builders to set the heights and floor heights for the house that will be built later on, and that it is set to the New Zealand Vertical Datum 2016. Survey equipment and accuracy. For this specific survey, we have decided to go with the GPS system, which is the most common way of doing topographic surveys. And normally the other type of equipment we would use would be a total station, but that is too accurate and it takes too long to do the job. It will require multiple setups, as this site has a lot of difference in heights, and we have to measure from the bottom of the earthworks and the retaining walls and then top. It would take too long. It would maybe take a full day plus to do the whole site. But with the GPS, we can do it in a couple of hours, and the requirements for accuracy is about, the GPS gets to about 15 mils, which is quite within what it's required for Christchurch City Council. So we'll be using that, and that makes the job of the surveyor much easier and a lot faster. We can do that in maybe a couple of hours. As said before, it is important that the surveyor uses this equipment well and within it, and knows the limitation of the equipment and knows what it's best used for. So GPS is specifically at best used with clear skies and away from coverage like trees and buildings. So for this site, it would be perfect as it is an empty site and it is on the side of a hill with a clear sky view. Data processing and outputs. Once the surveyor is done with the survey, he will bring all that data back into the office where he will process it through Trimble Business Center, or TBC. In that software, we will be able to do any changes and post survey processing that needs to be done, and that would allow the surveyor to change any calibration data and make sure that the data is correct before we go on to create all the files later on. Once we're done with TBC, we move all the data into 12D. 12D is a surveyor focused kind of CAD software that is used for merging all the XML data from previous surveys and the current data that we have used. All this data will be put together and created to move into AutoCAD, where we will do all the delivery part, which is the drawings, all the things that go to the architects and the engineers for later on they can plan their building on. As you can see, this is what it would look like once the job is completed and it's gone through CAD and it's been sent to the client. This is the lot next door to the lot that we'll be doing. So you can see some of the names that we mentioned before, Arthur Smith Drive. As you can see, the contour lines, lot name, the driveway heights. This will be what will be expected of the surveyor once the job is done and all the data has been processed. This is more or less what you guys will be receiving from us. In conclusion, this survey will give us a clear and accurate picture of the site and its surroundings. Since the terrain is quite hilly, careful planning will be especially important to make sure we capture the right level of detail and accuracy. We'll also need to pay close attention to the health and safety, as the slopes and uneven ground create extra risk in the field. By managing those risks and approaching the project in a structured way, covering the area, detail, accuracy, and outputs, we can deliver a reliable dataset that a client can fully rely on. This approach will help set the project up for success. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for paying such close attention to my presentation. Best regards. God bless you.